或许你跟我一样，在会议上再怎么样都想要发言，出点声音，但是到底要怎么做才好呢？有什么事情要绝对小心的呢？ EP Insight is the next level. For those looking for the extra advantage over the competition, we unpack advanced strategies and tactics and make them practical. EP is the why and what. Insight is the how. 锁定每周三的全新单元，带你进入行家的沟通世界。
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Recently, Sherry found a Harvard Business Review article that talked about two things. One is how to prep yourself to speak up more in meetings and be sure that you are noticed with your ideas. And two, I think the thing that most people don't cover, which is what should you be asking yourself if you are speaking up and how to recognize when probably you shouldn't.
Let's talk quickly about when to speak up or how to speak up. And I actually think that most people with a bit of a practice, it would come pretty easy, right? 那当然，当你的工作经验越来越多的时候，其实你能够发言的内容当然也越来越多，你能够 contribute 的一些价值也会越来越深。So I think that's not a problem for a lot of people who are working in the company. But when to hold back? 有什么时候你不应该发言，或者你不应该说话？ This is something we need to learn.
And this is about control, right? I think a lot of times, especially in Taiwan, because culturally it's a bit more of a passive versus, let's say, Koreans. Highly aggressive.
Yeah.
Mainland Chinese, highly aggressive in business. Of course, people think like Americans are highly aggressive when it comes to speaking up. So I think there's a lot of information out there. And they gave some good techniques in the article about like bullet point a few things you want to say in the meeting and then just find a moment or force yourself to stand up or pause and then build up your confidence. I would say this is pretty common advice that you can find everywhere. But what happens is two things. One, the person who speaks up all the time sometimes doesn't know when not to, and they need to learn. Or two, when you push yourself to do all these techniques and you grow, sometimes you forget because you've been pushing yourself to do it for so long that maybe you shouldn't do it all the time.
I think certain people are so used to talking in meetings, they just don't know how to shut up sometimes, to put it simply. When to hold back? Okay, this is really interesting. First, if you're only trying to show off, if your intention is to show off, then this is when you shouldn't talk in a meeting.
Now, HBR uses the term specifically show off. But I think that, okay, that may seem a little egotistic, like look at me. And there are people that do that. But I would also even dial that back to not just show off, but go into is if you're speaking for the sake of speaking. Again, let's say you've been pushing yourself to be more assertive in a meeting and you want to have input so you can be noticed or that you can push yourself. But you really do need to take stock of, am I talking to talk or am I talking to add value? And so we have all encountered that person in meetings who's like constantly like, I have a concern or I have a thought. And at the end of the thought, there's nothing actionable that you can take. It's like, great, you have a concern. It's noted. But I have literally no way to take action or to change a course to incorporate that concern. So now the question is that person adding value or are they just taking the time to pull some spotlight?
Yeah, and I think this is really interesting because, back in college, studying business, we were trained to speak up in class. Even when we had nothing to say, we're supposed to say something
like
because
a participation score.
Exactly.
Right?
We had, then we gain points. So I had to learn these couple ways or stupid sentences that I would say when I have zero to say. Like, for example, could you elaborate this word? Whatever, insert the word. But then when you started working, people hate this person. Just ask stupid questions like that. 但是我觉得当你开始做这些所谓 just speak up for no apparent reason at all, 有的时候可能就是习惯了。You get used to it and you think that you have to do it every time and you don't know when to stop and that becomes a problem.
Yeah, and you'll also notice that people who come out of very let's say, cutthroat environments where it's just like, or cutthroat positions, let's say sales. If sales are going for quota, it really is typically about who is the best talker, who can pull the most resources, because that directly, say, ties to their commission. Or you'll look at someone who came from a very cutthroat tech company, let's say Amazon. In Amazon, on a yearly basis, they cut a certain number of people lower performing. Doesn't mean bad. It just means if you're at the bottom rung of performance, they will just cut you. Well, oftentimes if you don't say anything, then your manager's not going to remember you and you're probably going to be in the chopping block. So you're kind of taught to speak up. But now it's back to, okay, there are environments that people will come out of where that makes sense. But the honest truth is if you're in meetings and you're just talking to talk or talking to show off, you really need to pay attention. Is that, like what Sherry's saying, something that was built up by training in either education or the work environment? Is that something where you're just trying to protect yourself? Or is this actually a situation where you're adding value to the conversation?
So the second thing that article points out, I think it's really important for us executives out there, is that if you're trying to empower your team and your staff, try to hold back in a meeting.
So some people, again, they'll think, I'm a good manager. I'm going to protect my staff. I'm going to make sure that they are covered. And if someone has an argument with them, then I'll protect them. So there may be an altruistic reason for doing this, but sometimes you also have to leave that room open for them to speak for themselves. Because if that person is going to move their way up, if that person is going to show their value, then you need to let them speak. There's definitely cases where we've seen managers speak for their team all the time. And they may think, oh, because, I don't want my team to feel nervous talking to higher managers or if they say something wrong. But sometimes just like, that's the only way they're going to have to grow. So sit back, let them answer the tough questions, and then deal with the consequences. If you have to step in, you can, but your default should not be talk for them.
And the third point is that ask yourself if this comment or question you're about to ask would be better for one-on-one situation. Because I do think a lot of times in the big meetings where there are like 20 or 30 people, not every single question would be relevant for everyone. I would say actually 90% of the time it's not. Think about that. And also, make sure that you ask the question to the right person and just schedule a one-on-one meeting after.
This is an interesting technique because, funny enough, we covered this in our con call class when it comes to hosting a meeting, which is there's actually two people responsible for this. One is a host recognizing that, okay, whatever conversation that's happening here does not involve everyone in the room. So you either need to cut those people off or you need to segment out the room. But then back to if you're the person starting a conversation where in reality you recognize 80% of the people in the room have nothing to do with that conversation, then it's back to, are you talking to talk or are you choosing the right timing? And this is much better to pull other people aside, call a different meeting, but not to tangent your entire current meeting that may involve everyone in the room to go handle like one or two people.
那希望在今天的单元能够提供大家一些小小的提示，也可以让你可能去 educate 其他团队的一些成员，不只是说什么时候来发言，而是什么时候不应该发言。So hopefully 大家的会议也能够越来越等于说有效率，而不是一直拖延，就是为了让大家发言而已。
If you're trying to learn how to speak up in meetings, that's great. There's some good advice in the article that we'll link in the show notes. But if you've kind of gotten past that point and you find yourself talking maybe too much in meetings, keep some of these when to hold back guidelines in mind. Talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
EP Insight is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry, Nick, Andrew, and Carol. You can find us on Instagram at CommunicationRD or receive tips and tricks straight to your email inbox by searching for EP Insight on Substack. For business inquiries, please email us at hello@presentality.com.